Heading into this season, the Vancouver Canucks had little to no expectations. Therefore, most analysts and fans thought they would be at best a bubble team competing for a wild card spot. And considering their dominant regular season, it begs the question, why? How can a team go from being seen as a lottery team to winning the Pacific Division? And well, the answer is simple. Since their Cup Finals appearance back in 2011, the Vancouver Canucks have been a bit of a disaster. Ups and downs, a lot of downs. And what was so frustrating for fans or me as a BC boy is that this team's core had unlimited potential. Quinn Hughes on the blue line.
Now Quinn Hughes turning to the line. Long slap shot. Scores!
Elias Pettersson at center.
The Golden Knights get out of that jam. Here's Pettersson stealing, tripped up. There'll be another penalty. Besser scores!
My goodness, Thatcher Demko in net.
Cutting in deep center's bed. Oh my goodness!
3 franchise players in each key position. However, just when he thought this team was gaining momentum, playing hockey the right way, they would collapse. Coach and GM firings, questionable trades and signings, and after years of failing to live up to expectations, fans all around the league lost all confidence in the Canucks. Even after clinching the Pacific Division, even after sweeping Nashville in the regular season, many analysts still predicted Nashville to win round 1. As it has become apparent that many people still consider Vancouver to be pretenders, if not straight up frauds. So the question is, are they right? This past season more than ever, I've been constantly hearing the term PDO. But what even is PDO? PDO is a metric that combines the team's shooting percentage and save percentage. In other words, it's a way to use analytics to assign a numerical value to luck in the NHL. For example, this past season, Alex Ovechkin had a horrible shooting percentage. As a result, many fans doubted that he would break Wayne Gretzky's goal-scoring record. But when you looked at Ovechkin's career shooting percentage, statistically speaking, he was bound for a bounce back, which he did.
Yeah. Send in Ovechkin. Backhand. Score!
But on the other side of the spectrum, we had Brock Besser, as this man started the season on fire. You'll love to see it.
And that puck trickles into the net. Brock Besser, hat trick. There's Hughes with a shot towards the net, and Brock Besser has 4 tonight.
With 17 goals in 24 games, Besser was on a 58 goal pace. But considering he had a 26 shooting percentage, over double than that of his career average, you just knew he had to come back down to earth. Which he did. So basically, every player and/or team will have stretches where every bounce goes their way. In Vancouver's case, the bounces were in fact going their way, as they would finish first place for PDO. And this right here has helped fuel the argument that the Vancouver Canucks this season, sure, they're good, but their puck luck is what's kept them at the top of the league. Therefore, the Canucks are frauds, right? This is where relying on a stat like PDO has massive flaws. Rather, external factors can skew this stat. Has Vancouver been lucky this season? Absolutely. But to chop up their success based on luck, it's ludicrous. As it's very important to understand that advanced analytics, metrics, they do tell a story, but they by no means tell the whole story. For example, Thatcher Demko has the ability to steal games, due to his pure ability to be one of the best goalies in the game, as Vancouver's team structure relies upon Demko. I don't love that fact, but it's true. Now, there's been situations like Andrew Hammond, where he joined the Senators and went on one of the craziest runs in NHL history.
Van Riemsdyk inside wall, stopped by Hammond, backdoor on Kessel.
Only to be in the minors several years later. So this is a great example on how PDO can capture luck when it comes to goaltending. But for the goalies who are consistently dominant, I think it's crazy that PDO attributes their skill to luck. Back in 2021, Carey Price arguably had the greatest postseason from a goalie in league history. You can't tell me that Carey Price being an absolute legend meant that he was lucky. So maybe PDO and luck should not be synonymous. And from a shooting percentage perspective, let's consider the evolution of Quinn Hughes. As last season, Hughes would score 7 goals on a 4.5 shooting percentage, which honestly is pretty rough. Yes, he's one of the best passers in the game, which is compensated for his lack of distance shooting, but if Hughes could work on a shot, in theory, it would lead to much better spacing in the offensive zone. If the opposing teams know that you have a muffin from the point, they are far less likely to cheat towards that player to take away a shot lane. Therefore, it would result in the opposing team to expand their coverage on other Canucks players. On this play, Quinn uses his agility to corral the puck at the blue line. Timo Meier, who was covering him, does not respect the shot. And at this point, the Sharks have 2 players in range to take Hughes out of the play, except
Hughes turning the line, long slap shot, scores!
Timo Meier, knowing that Hughes has a muffin, decides to give him space. The other Shark takes away the middle of the ice to prevent a D-to-D pass. And because Hughes was left open, he had full range to shoot the puck. Flash forward to this season. Quinn Hughes spent his offseason training his shot. Not only did he reap the rewards of his training, as he would score a career-high 17 goals on double the efficiency while taking more shots, but it's forced the opposition to cheat towards him at the point, which in turn leaves his line mates wide open.
T. Miller, the wrister, and it's in the net!
This also led to Hughes putting up a career-high 75 assists. For example, funny enough, against the Sharks, we saw a nearly identical play to the one we just went over, but due to the Sharks putting more respect on Hughes' shot, we would see the forwards staying on Hughes the entire time. Do you see the difference here? Do you get the point? It's night and day, where Hughes instead surveys and finds Hronek wide open. Now they wouldn't score, but this is a prime example of the impact of a superstar. Not only did Hughes' newfound ability to shoot the puck increase his goal scoring, but it would improve his teammates' scoring efficiency. Why? Because they're now finding themselves wide open. It's the exact same argument, of course to a lesser extent, when we think about Connor McDavid. He draws so much attention that the defenders have to cheat toward him. Not only that, McDavid had a 63-goal season last year. Therefore, it is not safe to assume that McDavid is just gonna pass the puck. It has allowed Zach Hyman's shooting percentage to go through the roof. Is McDavid being McDavid luck? No, he's creating a system that allows him to constantly set up his line mates. Now, this is a fairly high-level topic, so why don't we talk to an expert? As Brennan Morrison recently started his own YouTube channel, as he gives a great perspective on today's game. As he's played with legends like the Sedins, Naslin, Bertuzzi, Luongo, Scott Niedermayer, Chris Pronger, Timu Solani, Aginla, Alex Ovechkin. Are you kidding me? And he was gracious enough to join me on today's video. So definitely go check out his channel. His link will be down below. So welcome to the show, Brennan Morrison. Funny enough, even though my co-host and I, Riley, didn't know each other, lived in different places, we both had the West Coast Express Costco frame above our bed growing up. For better or for worse, I don't know, Brennan. But yeah, we looked up to you guys growing up, even before we started playing hockey.
You're making me feel old now, hey?
Brennan Morrison, if you guys didn't know, he played with lots of legends, but not even just stars. He played with many Hall of Famers. So he has a great, I guess, a great perspective on the background of the game and how stars can influence not just the team's success, but influence just how, I guess, spacing and all that stuff works on the ice. I kind of have a theory about how Quinn Hughes was able to train shot presence from the point. Do you feel like having a defenseman like Hughes, who's now more so of a dual threat compared to previous seasons, would open up more space for the forwards in the offensive zone?
His ability to create offense from the blue line is, you can say, second to none, or I would put him in a category of Cale Makar. Right? These guys have the ability to manufacture offense with the puck on the blue line. And you see guys attacking them, and it'll be edge work, a quick fake one way, cut back the other way. Next thing you know, they have an open lane to the net. So now what you're seeing is what we talked about earlier, is a little bit of that containment where guys aren't sprinting out at them because they know, if I sprint out at this guy, he's going to juke me one way or the other, and he's going to walk right down the pipe and have a shot on net. So you see a little bit more hesitation. You see a little bit more guys trying to have stick on puck and not getting caught out of position. But yes, his ability to manufacture offense from the blue line is phenomenal. There's very few guys that can do that. I mean, his edge work is he might have the best edges in the game. You know, you look at him, how he escapes certain areas. Yeah, I mean, he's a great skater. He's the combination of quickness, but he also has speed. He's not McDavid, but as far as him being able to handle pucks, cut off the net, skate out of trouble, I mean, he's in a unique league.
Does anything change subconsciously or consciously when you have a guy like Roberto Luongo in the net, or for this season, the Canucks have a guy like Demko? Does anything change in the team's mindset versus maybe having to go to Casey DeSmith for Vancouver?
You would like to think no. But when you take away a goaltender like Thatcher Demko, who is an all-star, I think it does change your mindset a little bit. I think you're not as willing to take as many risks, if that makes sense. I mean, you still have a team concept that you're playing within, or a structure. But sometimes when you have a guy back there who's an all-star, on a 50-50 puck, or a puck that you're not quite sure you're going to get, you might take that chance to get that puck, knowing that you have him back there. Whereas if you don't have your all-star goaltender in it might change your mindset a bit. Now, with that being said, I do believe that the Canucks have the utmost confidence in Casey DeSmith. You see the reception he got from the fans, when he started last game, and you see what the players are saying about him. I mean, he's a likable guy. He's done a good job for them all year. If he just goes in and doesn't overthink things and just plays the way he's been playing all year, then I think they have a very good chance. I mean, I felt terrible for him in game 2. I really don't think he could have done anything on any of the goals. The high tip, the goal by Forsberg was a world-class goal. I mean, that's a goal, I tell people, in any league, on any goalie. There's nothing you can do there. And the third one was a tough turnover. He made the initial save and the rebound goes in. But I think your mindset changes maybe subconsciously a bit, where, you don't take as many chances. I guess that's kind of my short answer to my long-winded answer.
That's great. And at this point, we've been talking about individual players. But what needs to be emphasized is the impact of a coach. In a recent interview with Dylan Cousins, he would say something that struck a chord.
What's important to you in the next head coach?
We're ready for a little more. Being harder on us. I think, we're ready now to not be, as comfortable. We want to be pushed harder and maybe held to a higher standard.
The Buffalo Sabres have been in a similar position as the Canucks, as this team is full to the brim of young elite talent. Yet, a cultural defining piece has always been missing. Therefore, these teams heavily rely on the impact of a coach. For the case of the Canucks or Sabres, not only do they need a strong coach, they need a coach that instills discipline. In today's game, simply outscoring the opposition is not a winning recipe. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, for the Flyers or New York Islanders, using all of your energy on defense has also not shown results, as teams need to find that equilibrium balance, where players are still held accountable in the defensive zone, while also creating high danger chances. This right here is a really hard balance to create. In fact, just like PDO, I would say that a team's goal scoring differential is a strong indicator of team culture, specifically for contending teams. On this graphic, we have the Canucks goal differential from 2016 up until 2024. And as we can see, not until Rick Tocchet got hired did the Canucks finally play a proper system. Yes, we would see some progression in 2020, but that went to waste in the following season. Yes, they scored nearly 280 goals in 2023, but them letting in nearly 300 goals cancelled out any form of sustainable success. Rick Tocchet not only has the ability to gain the respect of the room due to his NHL career and Stanley Cup win, but he is a coach that demands accountability. For example, if Quinn Hughes goes outside the team structure, this man has the balls to bench him. Whereas, if we take a look at Woodcroft before he got fired, there were games where Evan Bouchard had some of the most brutal shifts I have ever seen. Yet, Bouchard would play even more in the third period, as Rick Tocchet has been able to find a balance of being strict but fair. In a previous video, we would go over how each GM has their own specialty. Some are great at drafting, pro scouting, signing contracts, and coaches too have their own specialty. Can you explain maybe an experience where you have a more so players coach versus a coach that's really on you guys? Yeah, well, I mean, I would say in Washington, my year in Washington, we won the President's Trophy in 2009, 2010, and we had Bruce Boudreau as our coach. That was more of a country club atmosphere. I mean, he was good at, making the players feel very comfortable. But in hindsight, when I look back at what we had there in Washington, there just wasn't enough discipline at times, right? Guys got away with too much. We had an uber talented team. We ended up losing in round 1 to Montreal in game 7. So there's a fine line of, you have to allow the guys to be themselves, right? And certain players bring different things to the table. A guy like Pettersson on the Canucks, it's going to get a little more leeway than, say a guy like Phil DiGiuseppe. But they still have to buy into the team system, and some things are non-negotiable. I think having Tocchet in Vancouver has done wonders for this team. The mentality, the mindset, not only him, but you have Adam Foote and Gonchar, and you have Daniel and Henrik involved as well. I mean, the coaching staff is the best in the league, in my opinion. I actually feel like, even though it was super unfortunate, the way it unraveled, that just his stint there kind of boosted the confidence of a lot of the guys in the room. Like before he got there, Pettersson was on a slump, and after he left, it kind of, I guess more so the loose playing style kind of, at least there was a positive to it.
There's a positive. I think he does a really good job with guys playing offensively, but the reality is there's not a lot of structure, and you're not going to win that way, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. And I'm not here to be, a downer on Bruce, but that's my experience in Washington, and kind of historically, he's had a lot of great teams where guys feel good about themselves, which is what you want, but you need a little bit more than that in order if you want to win, right? You need everyone to buy into this structure, and you have to have something sound defensively that if things aren't going great offensively, you can fall back on and you still have the ability to win games.
Absolutely. I've actually always had a theory, maybe you can elaborate, where when a team, especially when they're starting to contend, that the goal differential is kind of an indicator of their structure and I guess kind of the culture of the room. So for example, last year under Bruce, Vancouver actually did really well offensively. They had about 280 goals for, but it doesn't really matter because they had about 300 goals against all season, right?
You're exactly right. I mean, you can score 3.5 goals a night, but if you're giving up 3.5 to 3.75, I mean, do the math, you're not going to be successful, right? So again, obviously offensive guys want to have the green light all the time to be creative and do their thing, but you have to be smart. And again, you have to have some structure. Like if you have an odd man rush, be creative, do your thing. But if you are going down the ice on a 2-on-3 or a 1-on-2, well, it's probably not a great idea to toe drag a guy at the blue line. Like, let's make a smart dump, get the puck in behind. Let's put it in a place where we have a chance to get that puck back. And I'm not saying play this style of dump and chase, but play the style where, hey, we can retrieve that puck and go to work down low.
Before Rick Tocchet came to the team, before Jim Benning was hired and fired and replaced by Rutherford and Patrick Allvin, it's important to understand that unless we saw top-tier drafting during the Jim Benning era, that this team's failure, disappointment, leading up to the last 2 seasons was inevitable. Just like how Steve Yzerman took over a shell of a team due to the poor drafting of Ken Holland, Vancouver was left with aging veterans and a depleted prospect pool. Like seriously, from 2006 up until 2013, the Vancouver Canucks would draft 48 players. Only one of them would become a star, which was Bo Horvat. Out of the 48 draft picks, only 5 of them would play 200 plus games in the NHL, and they would total just over 1,200 points. If Yzerman is the benchmark in the NHL, the golden standard, Mike Gillis is exactly what a team shouldn't do. Yes, Jim Benning was a part of the team that drafted Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, but outside the first round, his track record was brutal. Jim Benning not drafting depth outside the first round would only delay the process. But with that being said, finally, after a decade of disappointment, the Vancouver Canucks have a team that's only comparable to their 2011 Cup run. If we take a look at the last 5 Stanley Cup champions and compare their depth scoring to Vancouver, the Canucks are right there. So what I'm trying to say in this video, is Vancouver lucky? Yes, but I think their quote-unquote puck luck is more so a product of internal development, combined with the newly instilled team culture that has elevated the entire team. So regardless of this year's outcome, remember, if you're a Canucks fan, them getting into the playoffs is a win, as building a team and winning a cup is a marathon, not a sprint. JT Miller following Game 1 mentioned that walking into Rogers Arena was one of the best days of his life. Maybe can you give an example of one of your favorite memories for playing for the Canucks?
A lot of good years in Vancouver and played with some great players and with some exciting teams, but a lot of my memories kind of go back to playoffs as well. And just and I got to experience it. That was actually the first playoff game 2 against Nashville. That was the first playoff game I've ever sat in the stands at Rogers Arena and got to experience that from a fan's perspective. And it really blew me away, the atmosphere, the energy, like what it actually meant to everybody being in that building, right? I mean, it was like JT said, it was kind of like this emotional thing, right? And to see how much people care. I mean, 9 years since they've had a home game, so it's magical, right? When you come, I remember coming out of the tunnel for the first time.
Playing the perimeter right now for the Canucks. Now they draw.
This would have been against Colorado, and we were underdogs in that series. Colorado was the 1 seed, we were the 8 seed, but we didn't make the playoffs the previous year. But we were a young upstart team, and this was kind of our year to kind of gain some experience. And we ended up playing the Colorado team that won the cup, and obviously had Ray Bourque on it there, and a bunch of other Hall of Famers. But just stepping onto the ice and seeing everybody waving those towels, and it was special. It really is. And some other series that go through my mind are when we lost to Calgary there in Game 7. I mean, that was a great series back and forth, and we win in Calgary in Game 6.
Shoots, scores! Brennan Morrison in triple overtime. There will be a Game 7 as the Canucks knock off Calgary 5-4.
We get to come home from Game 7 and just, unfortunately we didn't get the job done. It still stings, but I remember just coming out of the tunnel there at the start of the games and having that music playing and the U2 playing and the fans going crazy. It brings back some good memories. Goosebumps, exactly. Yeah.
I was just going to follow up on talking about the support in Vancouver. It was like one of the first games watching on TV where like even after the game, they were losing. Almost all the fans were still in their seats, waving the towels around, and then flip to the Toronto game and it's almost just abandoned when they're losing, right? It's just such a difference in the support almost. And so I guess the last question would be, what impact does it have on a room playing in a hockey city like Vancouver?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, guys have a lot of pride. They want to do well, right? And it's even magnified more when you see a city that cares that much, right? I mean, nobody wants to let anybody down. Nobody wants to embarrass anybody. They want to do everything in the power they can to make everybody feel good. And you're right. I mean, we're talking about Toronto, and it almost seemed like it was so like a corporate-y feel, like nobody wanted to stand up and cheer. And it's like, but you're right, in Vancouver, even in Game 1, I noticed when I watched it on TV, and even Game 2, both times the Preds scored an early goal, it was quiet for about 10, 15 seconds. And at the game, just people were standing up around me like, get up, everybody get up, let's go. And it was like right back at it. I'm like, man, that's unbelievable, right? Like that's a passionate fan base and a fan base that really wants to see their team succeed.
But what are your thoughts? Is this Vancouver team legit? Or has this been a fluke season where every bounce has gone their way? And as always, thanks for watching.